All right, so sales track review. What we've been talking about is sales track actually has 22 lessons involved in it. And we went through all of sales track, but the first 6 lessons of sales track are what we're really trying to concentrate on, and that is your introduction. Well, what we've been talking about over the last 4 weeks or so is recruiting and how sales track integrates directly with your recruiting. In fact, we could probably call it recruiting track. And that's what I put up there on the board for you is recruiting track, but it follows the same pace, same basic information as sales track with some wording changes to make this more relevant towards the individual that you're looking to recruit into the company. So the recruiting process is gain interest. This is our recruiting process, which we're going to see here. And in gaining interest, that is your first 6 lessons of sales track. With whom do I start? The 15-second commercial, qualifying questions and tie-downs, personal and borrowed stories, the litmus test, and setting the appointment in stone. Last week, we discussed qualifying questions and tie-downs. This week, we're going to be discussing personal and borrowed stories as that relates to recruiting. Your second step in recruiting is send to videos or live webinar. I cannot stress this enough. If you are sending the videos out to a client, make sure they know that they are receiving the videos. Set it up just like an appointment, like you were making an appointment, so they have a deadline to watch the videos for you to be able to follow up and get back to them. Follow-up appointment to answer questions. What did they like best about what they saw? If you need to do a 3-way call, if needed to close them, have them speak to your upline, one of the leaders in your upline. Close them as a recruit, and then we want you to be targeting the 250 90-day starter package, the Worth 90-day starter. And if you go to the Newsworthy blog in your agent portal, there is information about the 90-day 250 starter package or starting program that allows them to utilize the program for 90 days and make a decision from there as to whether they want to buy it or not. But if they are a new agent coming in, we want them to have a relationship with the product. We want them to understand how the product operates. And so we have found that agents that are coming in under the 250, they are converting pretty regularly, and they have a better understanding of the operation of the program because they've been intimately involved with the operation of the program, customer support. I want you all to understand this. When you are recruiting somebody, in essence, you are selling them, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I don't want you to convince anyone that this is the right fit for them. It actually should be the other way around. Are they a good fit for Worth? Will they represent Worth? Are they a good fit for you? Are they someone that you will want to work with and help to succeed? Once that has been done and they've been signed up, begin their training, introduce them to support, and get them on the 5 steps to success. On the Worth Unlimited Corporate Training channel, there is a video on the 5 steps to success. All of this information, the majority of it's in your agent portal as well. So that is your recruiting process: gain interest, send videos, follow-up appointment, and then begin their training and support. So takeaways from last week: sales track lesson 3, recruiting track as it relates to recruiting. There's a couple big points that I want to put off there. Number 1 is keep your agenda off the table, and this will make more sense as I move through this. Have a series of questions that feel comfortable to you already in place. So I know, like Joan and Darlene, myself, many of the leaders, those of you that have been selling, you have a series of questions that you want to ask to the client, and this is what we were talking about with qualifiers and tie-downs that want to kind of point them in a direction, and it's very important that you ask these questions as open-ended questions, so they can't just answer with a yes or a no. They have to actually, you have to actually still get moving with the client, and if you just ask them questions that give you a yes or no response, you're really not finding out a whole lot about the client. You want to ask these opening questions to draw them out. And the big reason you want to do this is so you understand your client, you understand your client's needs. I emphasize that you really listen to your prospects and observe your prospects, their verbal responses as well as their body language. Body language can be a little bit hard to read for some people, but if they're leaning into you, chin's up, eyebrows aren't furrowed, that's usually a very receptive posture. If their arms are folded, they're leaning back, their head's cocked, they're looking down at you through their eyebrows, this is typically negative body language. So we want you to be aware of your prospect, and when we say really listen, it's not just the words that are coming out of the mouth. What are they really saying? Clarify what they're saying. Repeat it back to them with feel, felt, found. Make sure you have a clear understanding of what they're trying to get across, and be very observant of their motions and body language while you're asking the question as well as when they respond. The whole idea here is get to know your prospect, and this is what I was relating to before. Don't just hire everyone on. Don't convince people this is the right thing for them. You need to determine through asking them questions, what is their past history? Have they ever done direct sales? Do they have a list of people that they could call and get going with right out of the gate? Have they ever been on commission only? What are their goals? What are their aspirations? Is this somebody that you would want to work with and help to succeed? Get to know your prospects' hot spots. Be purposeful and strategize with your clients with the questions that you're asking them. Make notes, take notes on what things lit them up, what things were important to them. And in that, you can strategize. You can become more relevant to your client. Know your material and your process before you ever get there and try to recruit somebody. So do some self-education and some study. Go in and watch some of the videos that you haven't watched. Really get yourself immersed in the language and the culture of Worth Unlimited, and then recruiting will not be as difficult of a task. It won't be as arduous, especially if you get to know that client, because now you can be relevant. And the reason for this is you want to create value propositions that really speak to your prospect. If your prospect already owns a small business and he says, you know, I'm looking to have a value-added product to my existing business, I see some lateral movement between my business and this product, like mortgage brokers, insurance agents, financial planners, things of this nature, then if they state that's the way it is, the way to bring that around is, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're looking for just another product that you can utilize that'll be a value add to your clients, that will bolster your current business. And I'm here to tell you that listening to what you've already told me, Worth Unlimited would be a great product for you, and let me tell you why. This is creating your value propositions. Use questions to qualify your prospects. Use tie downs to increase and solidify the commitment of your prospect. So when you're asking these probing questions of the client, the idea is to tie them down. Well, yeah, if you could, you know, so if I could show you a business model and a product that would be a value add that doesn't have a large learning curve, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, all of the processes are digital, would there be any reason that you wouldn't want to bring that product on? Would there be any reason you wouldn't want to do business with me? Is there any reason you wouldn't want to join Worth Unlimited right now? That would be your tie down to your qualifying question. Only move forward with those who answer positively when you're trying to recruit. If it's always negative, it's, well, my last job, this happened, and I don't have people to call, and, you know, I'm just looking for something to do. You really want people that get the idea, the concept, the mission, and will help you to propel your business. If you have to strong-arm someone to move forward, then they are not the right fit for you. Question was asked just a little bit ago, and that was, are we doing the same promotion for May that we did in April? And the answer to that question is yes. We will still be doing first sale $150 bonus, second sale $250 bonus, third sale $350 bonus, limit 5 sales per month, cumulative promo. So I will have that posted by tomorrow in your agent portal. And yes, we will be doing the same promo for May. All right, so Worth Unlimited Sales Track. We're on recruiting part 3. I'm going to see if we can't get Dr. Joan Hackenstad on the phone before we go into that, and just see with what I have up on the screen with takeaways from last week, if Dr. Joan wants to add anything to those takeaways or anything that I missed or anything that she feels relevant. So, Dr. Joan, welcome to the call. How are you doing today?
I am well. Thank you very much. How are you?
If I was any better, there'd be 2 of me here, and then I don't think the world could stand it.
What would we do then?
What would you do? So, hey, I always appreciate your chime-ins and your information. With what's up on the screen right now, this is just the takeaways from last week. Did I miss anything, or is there anything that you would like to add to what you see up there on the takeaways?
I think this is actually one of the best summaries I've seen of qualifying questions and tie downs. I think this is exceptional. For me, truly, this step is the most important step, period. And forgive me, that's not to lessen the rest of Sales Track, but the reality is you have to get to know you have to get to know your prospect. You have to find out what makes them tick. You have to find out what's important to them. And this really is the foundation for the other steps. I'm just an example. These questions that you ask are going to tell you what stories to tell, which is what we're going to get into today. So I really do believe that this is one of the most important things. People buy emotionally, not intellectually, so this is going to tell you how to tap into those emotions. The other part of it, just remember that people become an agent for 3 main reasons. The first one is income. They either want a plan B, they want to replace their income, they want some form of an additional source of income. Number 2 is that they need a crusade. They need something to feel bigger and better than themselves. They need something to latch onto that they really do believe is going to change the world, and that is what we have. And then the third one is that they want to enhance or increase their core business. And I think that's one that we tend to not touch on very often. And that's probably where most of my success has come into place for recruiting, is because I have been tapping into how it can increase one's existing core business. If they're a realtor, loan officer, financial planner, insurance agent, those are very obvious. But how do you do it for the plastic surgeon? How do you do it for the dentist? How do you do it for other target markets as well? There's always ways that this can tie into that core business and truly enhance their core business. So getting kind of creative with that, I think, will be a really good way to tie into those qualifying questions and tie downs and really get to know them. And asking those questions are going to find out which one of those 3 things that prospect is truly looking for. So this was a phenomenal summary for last week. Really good job.
All right, awesome. And you mentioned, how do we get creative and we tie it into something like, a doctor or a physician or whatever. If we start talking about physicians and we start talking about, let's say, psychiatrists, psychologists, these people are all in health and wellness, right, Joan?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so what we're offering is, do you just want to fix them physically, or would financial repair help as well? There's
stress
always
is the number 1 issue.
Right. And so you could say in the physical health of your clients, you could say, we know that stress is the number 1 issue. They're going to agree with you if they're a doctor, physician, psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever that is, pharmacist. They're going to agree and say, well, if we could reduce the stress, wouldn't that be helping your clients in that same arena? The number 1 stressor that most people feel in America today, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joan, it's money. It's finances. Yep. And so
number 1 cause of divorce.
Yep. And so if you sit there and you really think about it for a moment when you're talking to somebody, start thinking about, and here's what I'd want you all to do with what Joan prefaced there. I would want you all to start thinking about the oddest jobs you can think of and how you could create a value proposition for the mechanic, let's say, the guy that's a mechanic. How could you create a value proposition for the individual that is working in the health and wellness field? How could you create a value proposition for somebody that's doing solar panels? You know, all of these, if you think about it, you can find an avenue where there's a lateral market, because what are we really talking about here? We're talking about getting people out of debt. And if you're talking about getting people out of debt, what you're talking about is freeing up future money, freeing up future possibilities, and freeing up future opportunities for that individual. Joan, would you agree with all that? Would you like to add anything before I go on?
Absolutely. And I would also just add to that, just to kind of give one simple answer, and this is one of many, so please do this brainstorming activity. Think about what happens when you go to a mechanic. How much money are you going to be spending? How many times does that really go through insurance? And let's say that you have to, I don't know anything about a car, so I'm not even going to pretend to know.
You have to replace, we'll say, Joan, you have to replace the timing belt, and it's $1,800 to do it on your Infiniti.
Holy cow, $1,800 on the Infiniti. Wow. How is that person going to pay for it? I mean, that's what we have to look at. How is the person going to pay for it? Do you think that the mechanic would be able to assist more of their clients and help them have a better running car if they could actually position them to have that more expensive debt, but then also be able to pay it off in a fraction of the time? Would they be able to help them have more fixes on their vehicle, whether the timing belt went out or cylinders? Are there cylinders? I don't know. Other things in the car, they would be able to help that person. Yay, go me! They would be able to do more things if they could actually help their clients pay it off even quicker. So It's about being creative. That's just one idea, again, of many, many, many ideas. But get creative, just like Mac was saying. Sit down. Everybody should have a target market, in my humble opinion. It should be the target market that your target market should be the market that you work in now. You know the vernacular. You know what makes people tick. You know the hidden ways that people say certain things. You know the abbreviations. I had one of my secretaries come up to me today because she was typing up something I'd written, and she's like, "What does this mean when you have a C with a line over it?" Well, I forget. That's medical shorthand for width. So we all have these shorthands that we know in our own professional arena. Use that to your advantage. Come up with why would somebody in your specific profession want to now become an agent. And it's not just for the plan B of having a second source of income. How would this enhance their core business?
Right.
Really get that brainstorming activity going.
Yep, I agree with you, and I know we're spending a little bit of time on this, but I want you to really understand, and the reason that the summary is so extensive on this is I'm in full agreement with Joan. Qualifiers and tie downs is where the money is. You've heard fortune in the follow-up. You've heard, learn closing techniques. I can tell you at the end of the day, if you ask the right questions, if you ask the difficult questions, if you drill down with the client and really get to the crux of the matter, that's where the client is going to tell you everything that you need in order to close them and bring them on board. And so what word really jumps out to me out of all of this is be relevant with your clients. If you are thinking of walking into a mortgage brokerage or a mortgage office and you don't know anything about mortgages, I wouldn't suggest that's a good target market for you. You should learn something about mortgages. If you're going to go talk to financial planners, same thing. Same thing with insurance agents. That's why, or whatever industry you came out of, that should be your target market because you already know the language. You already know the process and procedures. You can make your qualifying questions very tailored, very relevant, and to lead that client in a specific direction. If you want to blow recruiting somebody, try to get them recruited and then start talking to them about their industry if you don't know anything about their industry, and you're going to lose credibility very, very fast. So love everything Joan had to say, but do remember this piece of putting together qualifying questions, have a group of them that are already there, make it relevant, and then tie them down with value proposition questions that relate directly to their field and their immediate need of what they let you know they were trying to achieve. Now, I know for many of you this all feels like review, but everything that we do seems to be the sales track, and I want you to understand that recruiting follows that same type of rhythm. You're going to use sales track in your recruiting. You're just going to follow a 4-step process that we had already gone over. Okay, so share a story. That's lesson number 4, and this is personal and borrowed stories is lesson 4 of sales track. And today what we're going to discuss is how that integrates directly towards recruiting. Well, facts tell, but stories sell. This is exactly where you want to be with your recruiting. When you're telling a personal story, you know, we heard a couple from Joan and we heard them from Darlene in regards to, you know, why they joined Worth Unlimited. That can be a great personal story. Darlene was looking for a way, if you all remember, just to pay the electric bill. And then it was, okay, well, now I've got that covered. What if I could pay all the utilities? Okay, I got that covered. What if I could do the business and pay the mortgage and utilities? And she was able to cover all of that. But that would be a great story to tell somebody that you're trying to recruiting. Hey, look, when I first looked at this, I started out part-time. I was just looking for the money to, you know, bolster my income a little bit. And as time went on, I found out I learned more. It went from part-time to investing a little bit more time. I was making more money to now I'm full-time. And that may not be your story. It could be, you know, somebody approached me on this a year ago, and I waited a whole year to get involved doing research and found out at the very end I should have joined a year before because I wasted a whole year. So the stories are very important. People buy on emotion and back it up with logic. You heard Joan just say that. 90% of all decisions are based on emotion. Your average individual, whether they're looking to join your company or whether they're looking to buy the product, and I'll just say we're going to concentrate on the recruiting, they're still going to make a lot of their decisions based on emotion. How much money do they think they can make with the company? How easy is it going to be to integrate it with their existing business? Have they ever done outside sales, entrepreneurial sales, direct sales, whatever it is that you want to call that? There's so many different names for it now. But know that their indecision is going to be based off of emotion, which is probably going to be, do they like you? Do they like the model? Did you build value propositions for the client that truly spoke to them and made this seem like a simplistic entry point, which, as far as companies go, I don't know of any other company that has a lower threshold of entry and an easier process to follow that's been mapped out for you and is successful. Stories tap into those emotions and help clients elicit response with action. A good story, a compelling story, a story of success is always remembered. People may forget the concepts and information shown in a PowerPoint analysis or demonstration of the product, but no one forgets a compelling story. I want you to really think back when you were younger, and I'm not trying to make anybody overly old right now, but back when you were younger, I want you to think for a moment, how many lessons did you learn from the stories your grandparents told you? How many lessons did you learn from the stories your mom and dad told you? How many lessons did you learn if you went to church, went to school, from your teachers, your pastors? How many lessons have we learned just by sharing information? And we tend to remember these stories. We tend to remember the context of the story because it's more involving, it's more evoking of that individual than it is just, hey, do you want to join the company and you can make $1 million? Joan mentioned 3 basic reasons that people want to join a company, and that's to bolster their existing business, to find a mission that they can work with, or to make additional income. So these are our three biggest reasons that people want to get into a business. Make sure you hit those three reasons. Ask them, are they happy with the amount of money they're currently making? Would they like to have another product that would be a complement to their existing business model? Are they looking for a crusade that is bigger than they are, something as large as buying America back one family at a time? Is that something they can buy into? And you don't ask them that point blank. You're asking questions in the context of, well, how is your current business going? Are you making the kind of money that you would want to make? Do you feel that you offer all the products that you want to offer to your client? If you could come up with another product, what would that look like? If you were going to take care of your client's needs outside of your current business model, what would that look like for you? You want to really drill down with your question. That's why we say ask the important questions and ask the difficult questions. But when you tell a story, your story also must be relevant to your client, and your story must be built on value propositions that will speak to your client. Share your personal story or borrowed or one from someone else. It doesn't matter, just so long as the story is true. Use Darlene's, use Joan's. Use your own personal story of why you got involved with the company. Always use anonymity if you borrow a story. And what I mean by that is, don't tell them the person's name. Just, it was an agent I was working with, it was one of my customers, or if you want to say, it was myself. This is why I got involved. Use a relevant story that aligns with how they answered the questions. I.e., if you're speaking with a realtor, tell a story of another realtor incorporating the Worth account into their business and how it increased their core business. This would be the same thing with financial planners. This would be the same thing with insurance agents. If you know a mechanic that bought it, how did it help him out if he owned his own private shop? We have people on this product that joined the company, bought the product, that owned pizza shops. I know everybody's wondering, well, where is the lateral in the pizza shop? Well, it helped reduce the individual's overhead by what they owed on the building where they were doing pizzas out of, and by reducing the overhead, it increased their profit margin. So it's not just getting them out of debt. It's not just joining the company. It's the whole mission that you really want to get across to people that you're trying to recruit. Do they buy into the mission? Is this something they can believe in? Is this something that they can shout to the rooftops and get other people involved in this? Do they believe enough in this process and the product to go out and tell other people about it? In Share a Story, use your own story to initially gain interest and start the conversation that's familiar with you, it's comfortable for you, and you can move from there. I usually give a brief overview of a Worth account program and then end with my story and ask if they would like to see if they qualify, if they're buying the product. If you're telling them why, giving them the brief overview of the company and the program, and then you tell them your story of why you got involved, then it would just be, would you like to see if this is a good fit for you? This helps start your conversation. It's very casual. It's very open. During the conversation, ask questions to find out more about your prospect. Enter applicable borrowed story to which prospect can relate. Remember, though, this is a conversation, and therefore you need to be flexible. If the client makes a reply to you and it takes you way off track, I mean, you could say something like, let's put a pin in that for just a moment and we'll get back to that. Let's keep moving in this direction. Or you could say, you know what, that's a very valid question. Let me answer that for you, and then let's go back to what we were talking about. This has to be fluid. It can't sound, and there was something we started. It was the very first item I had on the summary, be relevant. If they ask you a question and then you just keep going on with your pitch and you don't even acknowledge the question, or you just blow over it, your client is truly, or your prospect is truly going to think that you just don't care. You're not listening to them. How many of you out there hate it when you say something to somebody and they continue on with their story and never answer your question or never fill you in? I know I do. If somebody is talking to me and I ask them a question, I want an answer. I wouldn't have interrupted them or waited till they stopped to ask a question. So make sure you're being relevant and above all, be truly listening to your client. May need to squeeze it down in length, your personal story or your borrowed story. You may need to squeeze your discussions. Fit the character of the individual. If you have an individual that just loves to talk, you may have to shorten them down a little bit. Hey, we have so much time here today. I'd like to be able to get through the material. I really love the story, but can we move on? Must maintain the contrast, what was versus what could be for people. And what we're saying there is the contrast of where you are now or what was for you and how that is and how that could be different by joining Worth. Now, that's not making outrageous claims about income. That's not oversimplifying how we sell the program. That's just saying, look, here's where you are, here's where you were. What if we could change that situation? What if we could add an extra $1,000 a month to your income? Do you need more than that? What if we could help you capture more of your clients through an ancillary product? And in fact, you may need to alter the sequence of the information that you are going through with the client. In sharing a story, personal borrowed story, listen to other agents' stories. Many of you have been on these calls. You've heard my story, Jones, Darlene, Sam's, Rip's. You've heard some other stories from other clients. There's recorded stories. Go in and talk to people that you recruited as agents in the past and ask them, why did you decide to join? What was the catalyst factor? What was it that moved you forward? If you don't have stories, call your leaders, call your upline, ask them why they got involved. Why did they recruit you? Each and every one of you that's on the call that is an agent was recruited for probably a very different reason. I firmly agree with Joan. Use your story. Listen to client stories. Keep them in the back of your mind and introduce stories when speaking with someone in a similar situation. Again, we're going back to relevancy. We're going back to the fact of listening to the client and really tailoring what you have to say to meet their needs. Remember, do not just focus on their analysis story. Other stories can also be helpful. Success with business, customer service, how are they using the program in their lifestyle, which aspects, tools do they like, use the most, and this is all for recruiting as well. Success with the business. How is customer service if you call in as an agent and you need support? How has being an agent with the company changed their lifestyle? Which aspects of being an agent, the back office tools, the analysis, the demo, the videos, what do they like the most? What do they use the most? What is it in their business that is the most appealing that they are using, and how did the company, how did the program impact their life? So do remember that sales and recruiting is a fine line, and a big question always comes up, well, do I sell to recruit or do I recruit to sell? Well, if you are flexible in your conversation, you should theoretically be doing both. And that would come from the questions that you ask the client, and they're going to give you what is most important to them. Are they interested in making extra money? Are they interested in getting out of debt? Or are they interested in both? Are they interested in supplementing their core business and advancing their core business? Or are they more interested in taking control of their financial future, their finances, or both? Which would speak to you the most? Get people to talk, draw them out, and they will give you the cues that you need. Okay, so before we go to the summary here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring Joan back on. And Joan, I know I've got you there. Is there anything in sharing a personal or borrowed story about recruiting that you would like to add? Is there anything that you would like to emphasize? Or both of those you could do. We have enough time. Or would you like to add a personal story that you tell individuals when you are trying to recruit them to the business?
Great question. I always tell my personal story of how the program has benefited me. I know that, and we've talked about this, you've mentioned it numerous times on the call, that people that are on the program tend to outsell and outperform those that are not on the program. And I also know that people need to have buy-in to the program, not of the program. Obviously, they'll sell more if they are on the program, but they have to believe in the program. So I always tell my story when I'm first talking to somebody. Before I've really gotten into questions, when you tell your own personal story, it kind of helps bring the wall down where people will be a little bit more open to talking to you because they think in their head, oh, well, they just shared something with me. I guess I can share something with them. So it's kind of a reciprocal thing as well. So I always do share my story, but the reality is we all have a story. We have a story why we bought the program. We have a story why we didn't buy the program. We have a story why we became an agent. All of these stories are relevant. Remember, and this is really just kind of reiterating what Mac had said, but people are going to remember about 10 to 15% about what you said. I mean, seriously, they only remember about 10 to 15% of what is said, but they are going to absolutely remember how they felt when they were around you. And that's why these stories are so powerful. This is why stories help cause and create action from those prospects that you're talking to. If you ask the right questions, you really get to know them, and then tell a relatable story, something that they can truly relate to, they begin to envision themselves in that story. And they think, well, gosh, if that realtor did it, I know my sales are really good. I could do even better. They start relating to it, and they position themselves, and they can picture themselves in that story. And that's the feeling that you're emotion, that you want to get from them. That's what you want to emote from them. And those emotions will evoke action. That's why relatable stories are truly, absolutely, 100% the most powerful stories you can possibly give. But you have to ask the right questions so you can tell the right story. So don't forget about those stories. Those stories or those questions. Those questions are critical so that you can tell the right stories. And be prepared. If you're truly having a conversation, you'll probably tell more than one story. That's okay. You don't have to limit yourself just to one. I mean, I usually say it's your personal and borrowed stories. It really is that critical to tell those stories. Now, not everything should be critical. And just a little side note on personalities, because Mac was bringing up personalities just a few minutes ago. If you're talking to an analytical, a true analytical, and the good news is that really only 1 in 5 of the population is truly an analytical, so really just about 20% of the population. Clearly I am. But if you're talking to an analytical, you want to make sure if they do ask a question that you ask the question first and then tell a story. So don't tell a story to answer the question. You want to make sure you answer that question clearly. The other side of it is that these stories are why feel, felt, sound are so powerful when you're helping somebody overcome their resistance. Feel, felt, found is a way to tell that story and help them open up that emotion and move through that emotion so that they can come through to the other side. So really this is a very important part of the sales process. So really listen to what they say so that you know which stories to tell.
All right, excellent. And I think what you're hearing from Joan and from myself when it comes to sharing a story, number one, be relevant. And you're only going to be relevant if you truly listen to your client, you know your material and your process, you have a couple stories that are already in your backlog that you remember that you can draw on very quickly, so be relevant. Number two, I would say out of this when you're sharing that story, be real with your clients. People know when people are not telling the truth or they're exaggerating. People know when you are just trying to convince them to do something. Be real with your clients. Don't give them fake stories. Don't try to BS your way through talking about mortgage, if you don't know anything about mortgage, go to the people that you know the vernacular, you know the language, be real, be relevant, and above all, always show ethic, moral, and integrity with everything that you do in business and everything that you do with these prospects. And I will promise you that if you spend your time trying to give them what they truly need, you will get back more than you could ever possibly hope for. So moving forward in summary here, we're going to say the sales track process is best used for recruiting as well as sales. So it is lateral. Just a little bit of language change, but use those same 6 steps. Use what you're learning in sales track because, in fact, you are actually selling a recruit, but you're not convincing them. Don't reinvent the wheel. Follow a duplicatable, replicatable system that can be easily learned and executed by others, and that is what we have in place. If you will take the time to look that over, you will see that. Remember, your 4 steps of your recruiting process are gain interest, and that's the first lesson, 6 lessons of sales track. Send to videos or live webinars. Set your follow-up appointment 24 to 48 hours so they have a deadline. Follow-up appointment, answer questions. What did they like best about what they saw? Do a 3-way call if needed to close them, and target the 250 90-day trial for recruiting. Begin training and support after you get them on. And then for just our personal and borrowed stories, we're going to say facts tell and stories sell. Use a relevant story that aligns with how they answered the questions. Do something uncomfortable every day to build your business, and don't be a secret business owner. Get out there and start the conversation that matters. Get out there and change lives. Look, I've been with this company now going on almost 17 years being with these guys. And I am here to tell you that for me, I have never come across a product that I feel more confident about delivering to a client if I have asked qualifying questions, if I know they're going to use the product. Same with recruiting. I've never felt more confident about bringing anyone into a business because I've seen people make massive money in this, but it does take work. It does take activity, but all of this has to do with the questions you're asking, the stories that you're telling. Are you relevant? Are you real? Are you honest? Is it someone you would want to work with, and would they want to work with you? With that having been said, I'm going to open it back up to Joan if you have any final comments in summary, Joan.
You know what? I think that this was a really good training. I liked how it was tied into the questions, like how the stories came about. Really, those questions are critical, but these stories are equally as important. So please remember, every time you hear a story, you might want to keep a little book. You might want to jot down those books, those stories, so that you can remember them and pull them out when you want to. You don't have to remember everything exactly. I've told my story a lot of times. I'm going to have my 29-year mortgage paid off in only 9.1 years. I'm saving over $327,000 in interest. Is somebody going to remember those exact numbers? Probably not. People aren't going to remember those details. They're going to remember the generalities of it and how they felt if they could relate to that story. So re-listen to this again if you need to, but I just want to personally close on this. So many of our dreams at first seem impossible, then they seem improbable. Then when we summon the will, they soon become inevitable. But that only happens if we take action. There are so many ways. There's thousands of reasons why we can't do something, and all we need is one reason why we can. Hold on to that one reason. Mac had said several times, hey, when you're asking somebody, do you have background in direct sales? Have you been in sales before? Guys, I had never been in sales before, not once. I was a shrink. I had no clue what I was doing. But I became a master of I wouldn't call master, that's probably an exaggeration, but I've studied the field. And because I'm now in it, I really wanted to become a student of sales. everything seems impossible when you first come to it. I thought getting to partner was going to be impossible because it just seemed overwhelming. What, I have to have 6 executive directors? Holy cannoli, how is that going to happen? But when I start breaking it down, it then became a little bit improbable, but a little bit more doable. Then when I started taking action, it all became inevitable. That can happen for you too, whatever your goals are with Worth Unlimited. But the critical part is you have to take action. Create the plan. Well, first of all, identify what you want to have happen with Worth. Create the plan, and then take action every single day. Do the things that are the most uncomfortable for you, because those things that are uncomfortable are typically the things that your business needs the most. So do one uncomfortable thing every single day, and you will see your business just explode. So thank you, Mac, for letting me be on the call so much tonight. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for being on the call tonight. But make sure you start that conversation that matters. That's going to be the most critical thing that we can do.
All right, excellent. You know, Henry Ford made a quote, and I think it's been a very overly used quote, but I think it really applies to where Joan ended. If you think you can or you think you can't, you are absolutely right. And I really want you to think about that as far as positioning your attitude with the business, positioning your attitude moving forward in life. I love that Joan said it's impossible, improbable, and then possibly doable. How many things do we worry about every single day that never even happen? How many opportunities do we miss because it was either presented to us in an odd fashion, or we thought it'd be too much work, or it just seemed out of the scope of doable for us? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are absolutely correct. If any of you ever need any questions, comments, help, you can feel free to contact me at Mac and Worth Unlimited and my cell phone there, or contact Worth Support. If it has to do with the operation of the program or navigation of the tools in the agent back office, obviously I would prefer that you contact Worth Support. They are fully trained to be able to walk you through that material. If it's something that's pressing or urgent that you don't quite understand, or you're trying to tailor a pitch, or you've got the president of so-and-so company and want to know the best way to approach him, always feel free to reach out to me directly. I want to thank Joan this evening for her involvement in the training. She has been involved in the trainings ever since I have been at this desk. So I know Joan and I are going on 10 years of knowing each other. We might even be going into 11 years. People, I would not put individuals on this call that, number one, are not successful, number two, don't understand how to motivate and move you forward, and number three, do not have the committed heart to the mission of buying America back one family at a time. When I put somebody on this call, listen to them, take notes. They are successful. They know what they're talking about. And I am just truly appreciative that you all have helped us keep this going as long as you have. And we're going to keep going for another 10 years and another 10 years after that. So I want to thank everybody for joining us for the Worth Unlimited Agent Update and Sales Track Training for April 30th. This is Mac Saunders, National Sales and Training Director. And with the Worth Unlimited team, we want to ask you to get out there and do something big, do something right, but at the very least, get out there and do something big right now. I want to thank you for joining us. Have a great evening. Take care.